It's the Roux Chef Bunny, sponsored by Blue Plate Mayonnaise on WBOK 1230 AM. And today, I am joined by no other than New Orleans legend, sausage legend. He blushes when I say these things, but it's the truth. I have a legend in the studio today, Mr. Vance Vaucresson, my brother, my business partner, and my friend. Welcome.
Welcome. How y'all doing today? How you doing at WBOK?
Yes, today I have Vance here today. We stepped away from the cafe, y'all, to come in and talk about, of all things, of course, Jazz Fest. Who knows more about Jazz Fest than Vance Vaucresson? How was your Jazz Fest, Vance? Because I don't know if y'all know, but I skipped out. I took a little break. Chef needed a little break, so Vance permitted me a little break.
Got to take care of Chef. It was great. You know, festival season is always one. April comes around. We're already ready and prepared to participate. It's something that is just a part of my existence as a.
Because how long have you been doing Jazz Fest? You were there at the very first one. You were in your mom's stomach.
No, actually, I was born. I was in a bassinet at the first.
Oh yeah,
one.
it's a bassinet.
Yeah,
That's
bassinet.
right. You were there.
Yeah, I was
so
there.
Vance has been there since an infant. Literally.
Since an infant, grew up out there, and saw this little small community festival grow into a worldwide destination festival with corporate backing, and it is an unstoppable force that is just growing and growing, and is such a great ambassador for the city of New Orleans and for all of our visitors, being that our biggest industry is still tourism. We have to work it, and when we have vehicles like the Jazz Fest, it only gives us a stage to showcase all the elements of what makes our community what it is. So
Absolutely. And you are the longest running vendor at Jazz Fest. No one has sold food longer than Vance and the Vaucresson family. And also, you sell po' boys, correct?
sell po' boys.
Tell everybody what kind. Of course, it's the famous hot sausage. And
Yeah, we sell po' boys, and we haven't changed the menu. We do a hot sausage po' boy, which culturally we know as chorizo. And then we also sell a crawfish sausage po' boy. We sell jerk chicken sausage po' boys. And at Jazz Fest, we added an alligator sausage po' boy and even hogshead cheese to sell with crackers. And these are all things that we wanted to add over time based on some requests, some other needs and desires, and even market. We felt we can add the alligator because it's one of those types of proteins that people come to New Orleans and they want crawfish, they want alligator, they want.
so they get their taste that
They
way.
get their taste,
in the po'
yeah.
boy.
So we took advantage
Round
of
up.
it. Mhm.
Hey, Naira, I don't think they can see me. Can they? Because it tells me stay tuned. I know they like to see my pretty face, too, and my lovely voice.
Exactly. She's the face sells the show, baby.
But seriously, I of course I had to have you here because you are the longest running vendor. I don't think everyone knows. They know your legacy, but how instrumental Mr. Sonny Vaucresson was in the entire inception of Jazz Fest.
Yeah, no, we had my dad was just such a great creative entrepreneur, and he had an opportunity to open up a restaurant in the early 60s on Bourbon Street, which now it's at 624 Bourbon. It's the Pat O'Brien's Annex Bar, but it was Vaucresson's Cafe Creole in the early 60s.
It absolutely was the first black-owned restaurant on Bourbon Street, right?
Well, first business owned on Bourbon Street by a black man, post Reconstruction, and it wasn't easy, but we got there, and then basically the meeting they had over there was a formative brainstorming meeting, which eventually became the start of what became the Jazz Fest. And you had Alan Jaffe, who managed Preservation Hall for Larry Bornstein, who was my dad's partner at the cafe. And then Larry Bornstein's good friend was George Wein, who's the founder of the Jazz Fest. And he had come for lunch, and he had just done Newport News Jazz Festival, which he has. And the idea and the conversation came as to why New Orleans does not have this type of vehicle. and they literally talked about it extensively. And George left that with enough of a start to say, let's start this and put this together. And he hired a 19-year-old record store manager by the name of Quinn Davis to help him, and another lady named Allison Miner. And they literally put together this beautiful, wonderful festival in Congo Square, where literally you had more musicians there than actual patrons, but it was the beginning of something
special.
special.
One? I'm pretty sure it was dismal. It wasn't what we see today.
No,
I mean, if it was new and no one knew about it.
Yeah, no, it was you when you see some of these small community church fairs around the town, that's literally what it was like back then. It was a small fair. They put it together, and but you saw the potential for something great and unique. And you had at the first fest, you had Mahalia Jackson walking around. You had Duke Ellington. You had some of these performers walking.
Wait! I never knew that.
Yeah.
You had who?
You had Mahalia was always around in her city and supported all the local things. But the Duke Ellington was invited to perform. He came and performed and was walking around. There's video footage of him and Mahalia and other vendors and other musicians walking around amongst the people, just enjoying, this feeling of community. And it was just such a great thing. And when there's a little side story, you had Preservation Hall Jazz Band, which is world famous. And you had two brothers that played in that band. You had Percy Humphrey and Willie Humphrey, the Humphrey brothers. One played clarinet and one played trumpet. And the one that played clarinet had a big fan. And they had this young, scrawny Jewish man that followed behind the Humphrey brothers throughout the festival because he played the clarinet, and he was such a big fan of the clarinetist.
I know who he is.
And that just happened to be Woody Allen, who's this famous director, but he's also has a traditional jazz band that tours when he can, and he plays clarinet. And so you had these type of people that were walking around just being a part of this unique and ingenious invention for something that highlights what we take for granted. We take for granted the jazz music. We take for granted the food. We take for granted all of
the weather.
The weather and the community offerings, all of the skilled artisans and the visual artists and everything. And so now what you see, and which was good because George Wein wrote a book about his life and his things. And in his book, one of the things that he says he regrets is turning the Jazz Fest over to the nonprofit organization that has it. And that's his opinion, but I think that the Jazz and Heritage Foundation was pivotal in keeping this festival and maintaining that it serves the community. They give grants every year to people who apply. They serve the community. They have a music camp for kids. They have all these things. So it's where he may have personally, as a business decision, regretted doing that. We here are thankful that the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation maintains that this is the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Committed to the culture,
yes.
Correct.
Yes, and that is why you continue to work with them. I know how much they love you. You are a Jazz Fest legend. And on the heels of Jazz Fest, I wanted to have you here more importantly because my listeners are local, most of them, and some of them are not. But some of them are also food people. That's my constituents. They tune in, and I also cover them. But you have a wealth of knowledge to pass on to people who are interested in joining the Jazz Fest and all festivals because you've done them all, most of them. You know about them. If you aren't doing them currently, you've had a chance or a shot with them. You know the ins and outs. Because I talk to Vance all the time, y'all, and no one has more festival knowledge. It's just a fact. He could tell you the numbers. He could tell you from the people in attendance what you could make, blah, blah, blah. He's the guru with it. So for people who are prospectively thinking about it, what do you suggest? What's their avenue?
Well, I thank you for such wonderful things you say about me, but I'm still hustling at it. My dad, I would say he'd be the legend of it. But if you're gonna, if you are going to, if you have a food company, if you are a caterer, if you have created something that you find is unique, first thing you do is you just believe that you can put it out there. You got to put it out there. There's a number of festivals out here that you can participate in. The one thing I would say is do your research. Figure out what you need to participate. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need a health department inspected kitchen to prepare your foods. It depends upon where you're sourcing it. Make sure all the sourcing is done in inspected facilities. And because you want to make sure that you're giving that end consumer that buys that product a wholesome product that will make them want to come back. You want to do your research. You want to also know it's not easy. It's hard work.
That's for sure. That I can definitely co-sign. It is not easy.
It's not. And we made a decision this year, Chef and I. It's like, look, I don't want you to really come out to the festivals anymore. I want you to concentrate on your catering and other things.
Wait, let's talk about my first Jazz Fest. Can we talk about that? Because it's still a running joke in the cafe. My very first Jazz Fest. You know, I've always been to Jazz Fest as a patron. So I went to Jazz Fest thinking, I didn't think about it, I guess. I showed up. Everybody was there. I got to the booth. I had my biggest, grandest hat on, my designer shades. I didn't have heels on, but I didn't have the right shoes on. I thought it was my moment. Quickly, they told me, girl, if you don't take that hat off and pull your sleeves up and get in here. And it's hot, it's sweaty, it's a little bitty box. Everybody's annoyed. It's just, look, we hate each other during festival season, but we get back to love. But we understand. But it's not easy at all. It wasn't what I thought. I know now though.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage. You work hard, but for all the hard work to serve your customers, to stay busy, and to see their reactions to getting good food that is impressive to them, that makes them want to come back, or even go out into the streets and support some of our local restaurants who may have similar foods. That's what you are. You're an ambassador. At any of these festivals, our biggest industry is tourism. When you are a vendor, you are an ambassador. You got to make sure that your people greet your customers, can give them the knowledge they need so that they can get the right food they want. And you want to make sure you put out a great, wholesome environment. a good product that will leave an impression to have them come back. I mean, we've made mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes in this business. Yeah. And that's how you grow. So you can't beat yourself up. You just have to stay committed, learn from your mistakes, but also utilize the resources of other vendors who've been out here. I've had a number of vendors who've approached me to ask me things. I have people I go to ask their questions and get them answers. And it's what it's about. You want to you create your village of reference, create your village of people who can help you. You don't have to do it by yourself. Open yourself up, ask questions, get the knowledge, and then work your butt off, because what it can do is sustain you and your family for generations.
Absolutely. And just what you said, ambassador, I know you may have you have problems, we all do, but you run your operation with precision. Like, you've been doing it for so long, it's like second nature to you. I watch you, I know in and out. So I respect you so much for it, because it's extremely hard work. And two, you have variables. It could rain. Anything can happen. You've put all this money and this labor out. So that is another side of it you need to consider. There is some variables and some loss sometimes, but the show must go on. And it has went on how many years now with Jazz Fest?
Well, Jazz Fest is, I keep tabs on how old it is, because it's the same age as me. So I'm 57. The Jazz Fest has been around for 57 years.
Wow.
But you've only had 55 festivals, because there were 2 years that they didn't have a festival because of COVID, which is amazing, because right after Katrina, they had a festival in '06, and I'll never forget. And I had to figure out how I was going to do it, but we did it. And I tell you, it's just a great opportunity. Festivals, now you have Jazz Fest, you have French Quarter Fest, which that started in '83, and that was one that was it was done because the French Quarter needed help. It had become it didn't have as much business. It had more of a seedy, kind of criminalistic type of label to it. And so the city decided to create this festival under Dutch Memorial's administration to bring people back to the quarter, to see what they've invested, to see what it has to offer. And thankfully, that festival has grown. We were an original vendor there, yes. And that has grown into a worldwide festival 2 festivals back to back that showcase the greatness of New Orleans: food, culture, art, and history. And I tell you, if you don't go to either one of them every year, you will you miss out on a wonderful, wonderful experience.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we're going to talk about French Quarter Fest more in depth when we come back after the break because that's another one we need to talk about. I didn't realize it was 83, but we're going to talk about that more when we come back from the break. The Roux Chef Bunny. Y'all know I'm all about keeping it authentic and keeping it New Orleans. And when it comes to my remoulade or dressing up a perfect po' boy, there's only one mayo that's been doing it right since 1927, and that's Blue Plate mayonnaise. Born right here in New Orleans, Blue Plate uses only egg yolks, just like my grandmother Viola taught me. That's what gives it that extra rich, creamy texture that makes everything taste better. You know what they say, that's the good stuff. Blue Plate mayo, made in New Orleans and made to make everything taste like family. Hey y'all, make sure you tune in on Thursdays at 12:30 p.m. for the Roux Chef Bunny, sponsored by Blue Plate Mayonnaise on WBOK 12:30 a.m. Crawbabies inside of Vaucresson's Creole Cafe, serving the best authentic Creole food in New Orleans. Gumbo, yakami, smothered okra, seafood potato, crawfish etouffee, and more. We're located at 1800 St. Bernard Avenue in the heart of the 7th Ward, Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Ask about catering and event space rental. Follow us on Instagram at Eat Crawbabies NOLA, on Facebook, Crawbabies LLC.
From the campus of Xavier University, WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
And we're back. It's the Roux Chef Bunny, sponsored by Blue Plate Mayonnaise on WBOK 12:30 a.m. And I am here talking to Vance Vaucresson, owner of Vaucresson's Creole Cafe, my friend and my brother. And we're talking about festivals. We were just talking about French Quarter Festival, and Vance mentioned that French Quarter Festival was incepted in 1983, and it was in an effort to refurbish or renew the French Quarter and its reputation. I didn't realize that then. I remember, though, it started just in Jackson Square. It was just in Jackson Square when it started, and look how far it's expanded. It goes down to Waldenburg. It's up the river. It's everywhere. It's in the French Market.
Yeah, no, they've done a phenomenal job with expanding the French Quarter Fest, and it's the only free festival of that magnitude. It's amazing that they can keep it so that people can come and experience this. And their footprint is literally all over the French Quarter.
Yes,
And
it's everywhere. It's even on Bourbon. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And then at the end, I don't know if people know this. There's a big, if James Andrews is on the stage, there's going to be a big second line afterwards, and he goes all the way through the quarter because I ended up in it last year. I was like, when it ended, I was like at Bourbon and Canal from Jackson Square. But yeah, it's grown exponentially throughout the French Quarter, and that I mean, you made me remember it was. No one wanted to go to the quarters in the 80s. You know, back then we just moved to New Orleans when it started because we left the Marigny in 82. But I remember walking to Cafe Du Monde with my mom at night on Mondays for beignets because we live right on Elysian Fields, and it being undesirable, the quarter. It was like, because I tell people all the time, getting beignets for me, I'm like, that's like, it's not a thing for me because it was something we did, and like remembering that time now, it was like, it's like the quarter, yuck,
Yeah, no, it's like anything. When you look at, the quarter and how it became, and then, business looked at how do we continue to invest and change as they look at the demographic shifts and the changes that data presents them. So here, this festival started in 83. It was only in Jackson Square. I remember the first one, I was like 15 years old, and it was literally just, people walking around. They had, like, again, more vendors than people.
Right.
Politicians taking pictures, showing what they created. And so after all that was done, then it got to the organizers. I got to give a shout out to Sandra Dardis, who was the first executive director.
Hey, Sandra. That's my girl. She's a dime.
She's a dime. She's the first executive director. She literally got the Jazz Fest food vendors list and started calling all those vendors to see if they would be interested in participating in this new festival. And we took that as an opportunity. My dad's good friend was Dutch Moriel. He doubled back and said, yeah, please, we want y'all to be a part of it. It'll be a great thing we're starting and creating. And my dad was just one that he wanted to continue to participate in these things, to serve the community. And now, I mean, the biggest thing that I saw recently this year was when they finally, after 10-some years, the Waldenberg Gold Ring expansion on the wharf right there at the end of Esplanade is phenomenal. And that tied into Crescent Park on the river really gives our visitors, even our locals, all of this square footage on the river to enjoy it, bring your families, bring your loved one, your friend. This is what it's about. Our city's growing, people. All the stuff that's going on out here in this world, New Orleans is unique. They're trying to say we need to do this, that, and the other. Enjoy your city. Go out to your restaurants. Go out to your public spaces. Enjoy your city. Enjoy your culture. This is what we're about. Don't let them tell you these things. It's yours. Enjoy your city.
That's right. And I wonder now if the people who created the French Quarter Fest ever envisioned it being at this scale, on the river, expanded, just as you said, at the wharf. I'm sure because I never saw it in Jackson Square. And to be honest, my first foray into French Quarter Fest, I can remember it vividly because I know where I was working at a restaurant down in the quarter back in 95, I'll say. It was 95. And they participated. And I was like, I didn't know anything about French Quarter Fest. It's like that was my first, and I was like, oh, this is cool. It's just like Jazz Fest, but you don't have to pay. And just by the way, as we talk about it, Jazz Fest, I remember, when I look at it now, I am proud and I love to see it because I remember Jazz Fest. You remember the inception, but I'm a little younger than you. My day, it was like locals. It was like, they took the school kids. You went to the gospel tent. It was like, I didn't want to go. I don't like being hot, but I remember people giving tickets away. It was always like, now everybody's begging for tickets, but back then you couldn't give a ticket away. So to see the progress is awesome for me for both of those festivals.
It is. And again, kudos to the Jazz and Heritage Foundation because all those elements they fight to maintain. The school kids still get their day to come out and expose them to it.
There's a locals day.
You still have reasonable price tickets to come out as a local. I mean, they're doing their best to keep it accessible to our local environment. But you now have a world-class destination festival on the same level as a Bonnaroo, Coachella, and it's big business.
And they make an effort. I do appreciate they make the effort to include our locals and our culture, and Jazz Fest does a wonderful job with that. And I like how every year now they're taking a new country or a new culture and incorporating it. Last year it was the Spanish thing. This year it was a Jamaican thing. I like that element as well. In addition to our local culture, they always include the second line bands, the Indians, our local musicians. So it is a great thing. What we thought in the past, we was dismissive of Jazz Fest. We've come to appreciate it because we know its impact now. It's economic impact, it's cultural impact, and it's culinary impact.
Yeah, no, it's and the French Quarter Fest and the Jazz Fest have grown because it was a wonderful timing thing. When the Jazz Fest started, I remember my folks telling me, they robbed Peter to pay Paul to even break even in the first years of Jazz Fest.
I'm sure.
But the festival started to take notice. And there was, it got national notice in the early 70s. The New York Times food critic, Mimi Sheridan at the time, came down to the festival. And she was really impressed by this festival that we had in New Orleans. And she wrote an article in the New York Times that let people know, hey, New Orleans has this great festival, and it highlights the jazz, and it highlights the art. But the thing that makes this festival and what it is the food. And
The
she
food.
just really put the food on the map. And from that article, and she came by and she did in 1976, she, it's in the archives of Jazz Fest, they had the Food Olympics. And she judged it, where they tasted all the foods at the fest, and they judged it. And put a little feather in my hat. We won Best Food at Fest that year, 1976.
Of course you did.
So we were thankful for that. But that was just one element where that made people come here for the festival, to started growing that festival, making it what it was. And then when they started French Quarter, they just got swept up in the fact that we now started having visitors coming specifically for this new festival season that had been created. And since then, now you get people internationally and nationally who plan April and May. They're coming out for both of those festivals.
That's my favorite part, seeing all the people from everywhere. And so many people from different countries come to your booth, and then too, of course, they're coming to yours because I don't care where they're from. They've heard of Vaucresson's in relation to the festival. So they're coming and they're getting their po' boys. And plus, too, if they're a return visitor, that's just par for the course for them on their trip. I got to get my Vaucresson's po' boy. It's just how it goes. It's part of their ritual. So, but I love seeing how far we've come, how we've grown. I would love to see new up-and-coming places join these festivals. And I also love seeing a spinoff of all the other smaller festivals that have been created subsequently. Now we have the Fried Chicken Fest. We have the Congo Square Fest. We have the Gumbo Fest, the Treme Fest. So all of those things are just great to see because it's always a chance to share our culture, our community, our food, and for people to get exposure, people from our area to get exposure, which they need.
Yeah. No. Festivals are a part of New Orleans culture. It's always been. We've always been a communal city. But what I've seen, we've got some great new vendors that have gotten into some of these festivals. I know French Quarter Fest, we had some new vendors.
Yes, because you are also on the committee of judging.
And we judged some great ones.
Yes,
and so
who's going to get in or not. So he is. Don't listen to him. He is a legend. He's everything.
So we had, just to give a shout out, we had new vendors in French Quarter. We had Chicken's Kitchen.
Oh, yeah, Chicken Kitchen. Look, Chicken Kitchen's rock.
They rocked. He did great. Willie Mays did great.
Yes.
Nori guys did great.
Yes.
We had a Spicy Mango got in this year. And Moral Hospitality has really grown in their presence.
What, 5 booths?
I think he's got.
Fest,
I think
right?
he's got a booth for every restaurant he has.
Awesome.
So he's really done well with that. And that's only, they utilize it for their own business growth, but they want to be representative at that time with all those people coming from around the world to showcase their products. And it's just a wonderful thing. But I want to say this. The French Quarter Fest, especially the Jazz Fest, you've got to know on this platform of WBOK, you got to know both of those festivals would not be what they are today if it wasn't from Black communal participation, organization, and support. In Jazz Fest, when it first started, you had Black representation in putting it together. Those Black churches came in and supported, brought those choirs, brought Second True Vine Baptist Church had a chicken booth, the first chicken
Pastor
booth.
John Jack.
And they participated and grew this festival. We cannot let our history be delineated from these festivals. If it wasn't for the Black community, we would not have the French Quarter Fest nor the Jazz Fest.
And I love that you're there to take all of these new vendors under the wing and show them the ropes, because I know personally that people have deferred to you because they know whether you want to admit it or not, you are the festival legend. You are. Because they keep deferring to you. But for you to see them come in and you're so gracious. You're not like me. You're so nice. And you're rating and saying, okay, this one, that one. I know you love it because you know how long you've done it, to see them coming in and they may have the same legacy as you if they stick with it.
And a lot of them have grown their businesses with these festivals. Like, for instance, I know like Little Dizzy's has participated for years and they've grown their business there. The Galley. Nobody knew who the Galley was right there around in Metairie, by Metairie Road. The Soft Shell Crab Po' Boy. They grew their business. Patton's Caterers grew their business. Everyone who stuck there and grinded and exposed their product to these people have been able to grow their businesses. So when you've got some of these really great new businesses that are getting into these festivals, they're going to continue to grow their business, grow their brand, this is what business is about. You just, as you are a young vendor, if you have a product, yeah, you're going to be told no in some of these festivals. You're going to be told you can't come in. Keep trying, keep fighting. Once you get in, you just work hard, build your brand, build your presence.
Follow the rules.
And work with your community. You know, one thing, when I saw the talent of Bunny Young, and I said, you know, I had an opening at the cafe. I said, look, could you please come here, join forces with me, and let's build something on the corner of St. Bernard and Roman that's going to serve this community, serve this area that has been gentrified with a stakeholding business that gives authentic representation of the community and its history. And that's all we're doing. And there's so many businesses in their communities. Heard That Kitchen. He's in his area serving his food, representing his community. You've got
Munch
Factory.
Yes.
He went and moved over there in off of Banks in Bienville, and he's killing it. But they've been at it for a while. You got to realize these are not overnight sensations. They grind it. If you have a business, if you have it in food, in construction, in retail, whatever it is, you got to be ready to grind, sacrifice, and put in the time. You're not going to make it overnight. If you do, congratulations, you had a great opportunity. But you got to grind and keep learning your numbers, keep studying, keep learning everything you need. I'm still learning. I'm still
every day
got
we're
consultants. Learning. I got people that I ask because I don't know everything, because I'm going to keep learning. You got to keep grinding, because we need to do that, because small business, small black business in New Orleans is the economic engine, and we need you to keep going and keep investing.
That's right. Thank you so much, Vance, today for enlightening my guests. You don't know what a real solid you did me, because I think this is serviceable. I think my listeners needed this information, because I get questions too, but I have to defer to you because I don't know. But thank you so much for coming in today. We'll be back next week. Thank you for tuning in today to the Roux Chef Bunny, sponsored by on WBOK 1230 AM.